Okay, I just started streaming, just FYI.
Well, we will open our May 10th, 2021 meeting at 7 o'clock, and we'll call the meeting to order. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge Judith's stellar presentation at our May 5th school district presentation and library presentation for our vote on May 18th. And also Lori, Antonio, Audrey, and Deborah. And we thank all of them for attending and for their presentations. So again, thank you, Judith.
Yep.
Stellar, always stellar.
Thank you. It seems like when you have an opportunity to tell a story, you should try to tell a story. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Yes.
Oh, I think that's the most effective. It was really, I thought it was great, Judith. It was very, it wasn't, that, I hate to say it, but it can be such dry material, and it didn't really seem very dry the way you presented it.
Yeah, well, our numbers are so much lower than the school district that it seems silly to kind of do it the way they do it.
Well, thank you, Judith, and thank to all the candidates. So we will welcome any visitors. I don't know if we have any tonight. I hope so. And we'll look for the approval of the April minutes.
The only correction I have is that I was not physically in attendance. I was there by my brain. But I was not physically there.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's okay, but I just for corrections.
Okay.
Okay, that's wonderful. Are there any others?
I didn't see anything.
I didn't.
Thank you.
So we'll entertain a motion to approve the April minutes.
I make a motion to approve the April minutes with the one correction that we mentioned.
Second? Want to make a second?
I don't think I should, so.
I know I wasn't there, so I don't feel like.
That's right, okay.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, LD.
Okay. Any discussion about that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes pass. And now we'll move on to the director's reports.
Let me share my screen here. Share. Let's start with this, and then slide. Okay, so I'm gonna start with programs. We had a fairly heavy program month. This is one of my favorites. We do this quarterly. It's our second time doing it. Carol, Kirsten, and I just talk up some of the forthcoming books. It's always a bit of a gamble because we aren't always able to get advanced copies to read. So sometimes we go off reviews and what we've read about them, and then we read them and we're a little disappointed. But sometimes you read them and they're great and you feel really good about your recommendations. So it's something that we've been slowly growing the audience for. We doubled our turnout from December, which was good, but our December turnout was moderate. So I felt good about that. It's something that the people who come really seem to enjoy it. So we'll be doing another one highlighting fall books. We had a presenter from the Cooperative Extension, Fish to the Hudson. I think Trisha, your husband was there, yeah?
Yeah, he was there. I was there too, but I was with a friend of mine.
He, as you know, doesn't participate a lot, but when I told him about it, he was very excited. Yeah, he liked it a lot.
Good. Yeah, we only had like 5 people sign up, which I think is a little bit of a disappointment. The presenter from the Cooperative Extension had done it at Guilderland and had 25 and thought of us actually being on the Hudson and would have more. But alas, we did not. But I got some really nice feedback from 1 or 2 other people too. Who found it useful and interesting.
I wasn't officially on the list, but I thought it was a really, really good presentation.
You were there?
Yeah, I was with Sarah. I was over at Sarah's and I was watching it at her house because I tried to register, but it had been closed out the night before.
Yeah,
So I had waited too long.
Is that a muskalung or a pike on the picture?
Lori?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know, Russ.
It's one. It's one.
I think
It's the pike family.
yeah, I don't know. I'm
Sorry.
sorry. It doesn't look familiar to me, but I'm not much of a fisherman.
researched that before I used the slide, so that's a failure on my part. I am not a fisher. And apparently the short answer of fish from the Hudson, what's safe to eat? The answer is almost nothing.
Yeah, that was my take.
Yeah, the tributaries, though, are safe. And I guess if you're over 50, and there's some exceptions to that rule. But we like to partner with the Cooperative Extension. They have good programs, and I like that image, so I went with it.
My only complaint was that I wanted to hear about sturgeon, and she didn't talk about sturgeon at all.
Did you ask?
No, I didn't.
So we're still doing our weekly take and makes. They're still pretty popular. We have yet to not run out of them, which is fantastic. This is a felt wreath that went really fast. We also did a free comic day bag. This is something we do every year as a partnership with Earth World Comics, which is in Albany. We get some comic books at cost, which is very inexpensive, and then just give them out to kids, and those also went in one day. So the only problem was people came in on April 28th and 29th kind of looking for them. We're like, oh, sorry, we misunderestimated the amount of time where they would go. Lego Challenge. This is a program that Brendan and Barb do with kids. They get a theme. This one was robots. We do it once a month. We had maybe 4 or 5 kids show up. They wanted to do it every week, but I took mercy on Brendan and Barb and said that once a month is enough. The upcoming one is themed, I think, cars, trucks, or planes, trains, and automobiles. Actually, they themed it, hoping that maybe that would snag some adult interest in fun of their kids. We have 2 story walks going in. I have a question. Does anyone know who Bruce Heber is?
No.
Because I got a message saying that Bruce Heber is entering the waiting room. Megan just texted me. I'm going to text her really quickly and see if she's Bruce. Are you Bruce? Because obviously I don't want to let someone in who shouldn't be here. But if it's Megan, of course I will let her in. So I'm just going to pause for a second, see if she responds. She's responding. Yes, LOL. So I'll admit Bruce. So we have 2 new story walks that are going up. One is going up at Longview Park. That's down, actually just outside of our district. It's in New Baltimore, but it's in the Coxsackie-Athens part of New Baltimore. But Scenic Hudson and the New Baltimore Conservancy were enthusiastic about partnering with us. They have, folks probably know the property. I think people mainly go there for the views, but they also have a dairy barn, a chicken shed, and some other kind of farm outbuildings that their long-range plan include restoration. So they thought this would be a kind of a fun story to draw a little bit of attention to their outbuildings. So that is going to be installed this Saturday. And then the story walk that we installed last year at Mosier Park, we are switching it out and putting up the book Mama Built a Little Nest. We're hoping to also get that done this week. So for mid-May, we'll have 2 new story walks, which I'm excited about. It's perfect COVID program. And it also goes really nicely with our summer reading theme, which is tales and tales, AIL and ALE, obviously. And then we're throwing trails in there, too. So tales, trails, and tales. I'm not sure if that's the best way of putting that. So it's obviously a tale on a trail. I nominated 2 programs for the Upper Hudson Program of the Year. Upper Hudson Annual Dinner this year is going to happen virtually. It is on June 9th. There will be information coming about that. They're having a speaker who, it's Gretchen, I have it written down somewhere, it's not in front of me. Her first name is Gretchen. I want to say Gretchen Soren, maybe. She's been on the local PBS station a lot. She's a professor based out of Cooperstown. She wrote a book called Driving While Black, which is meant to be really good. So she's going to be the featured speaker. but they are, as always, doing Program of the Years. So I nominated 2 programs, and when I kind of look through our programs to choose what to nominate, I like to look at like what are other libraries not doing. 90% of what we do is, what other libraries do, right? The story times, the book clubs, the Lego clubs. It's good stuff, but it's certainly not original. So I thought the Dear Stranger program was something that, to my knowledge, no other libraries around here were doing. So I did that for adults. And for kids, I took the Barb a little bit, and she really wanted to do the book giveaways from last spring, when everyone was closed, and we just every Wednesday put out a table with kids, books for all ages. But what went fastest was the kids' books, and then the kids' activities. So we wrote that up and submitted it. It's not a program in your more traditional sense, but it really did fill a void last spring. And I don't think, to my knowledge, there weren't other libraries that did that. So I was happy to write that up. So I sent them in on Friday, so we will see if either of them are selected. Marie mentioned the budget presentation earlier. That was last Wednesday. This is our little board of candidates that's up in the library, just to raise awareness a little bit. I'm a little bit concerned about our newsletter. I went to the printer 3 weeks ago. Marie helped out a lot with the copy editing, so thank you, Marie. She's got that eagle eye, and I've emailed him last Monday saying, I know that we talked about making sure the newsletter was in everyone's mailboxes by May 10th. Has anyone received it yet? So last Monday I emailed him saying, I know that in order to have it in people's mailboxes by May 10th, you'll want to be mailing it out this week. For us to pay you, I need to get your invoice by my board meeting. My board meeting is this coming Monday. I did not hear back from him, which mainly because you would think that he would be very responsive about the opportunity to be paid. So I tend to worry about these things, and maybe it's fine, and maybe you'll all get them tomorrow. But the radio silence was a little bit disconcerting. So we do have a lovely newsletter, and I'm really hoping that you all get it in your mailbox tomorrow or Wednesday. If you do get it, could you just shoot me an email just so I know? And I'll also send out a digital copy just in case. I mean, obviously, if he doesn't get it mailed, we will save a lot of money. But seeing how we went through the effort of pulling this together, and seeing how the vote is next Tuesday, obviously we wanted to get mailed, and hopefully I am worrying about nothing. But when I didn't hear back from him after saying, this is how you get paid, it made me go, a little bit. It's the same company we've used for a number of years, but they were purchased by a different owner last year. So this is our first time working with them. So that's probably the source of my anxiety about this. And then a couple other miscellaneous things. Oops, I'm missing a space. We had Larry the plumber came because, lo and behold, our toilets were backing up because they were stuffed full of paper towels. Which is, probably, we got a bit of a reprieve this year. It's probably an annual occurrence. And we definitely had at least 12 months without it happening, so we were due. Larry's suggestion was, I'm here fairly often. You maybe want to switch to air dryers, which may well be a very good suggestion. It costs, I think, about $250 to have him come and solve the problem. And you got to pay over the course of a couple of years. I would imagine that cancels out the cost of an electrician installing hand dryers. And then
They might be,
yeah. Sorry.
That might be a good idea to go that way, though, especially with sanitary.
I actually looked into it a couple of years ago, both in terms of the environmental impact and in terms of the hygiene end of it. And people really do argue both ends. Some people say that, especially if you get non-virgin sourced paper towels, because it uses less energy, it's more environmentally friendly. And then there's concern about this dispersion of germs with the blowing air. But it saves you plumbing bills, so it's hard to argue with that. And then I had a meeting last week with the town of Queens. Folks may know has hired a grants writer, so I wanted to meet her. So I sat down with her and then also Marlene McTeague from the Business Association, just for kind of a chat about what the town is looking at doing. Obviously, she's on the town's dime, but I thought it would be good to know her, both because I wanted her to think of the library as a potential partner. I'm sure folks have seen there's a lot of funding for broadband initiatives that are going out. And I think we'd be a logical partner on that. And mainly to make her acquaintance. She was a lovely woman. She's a retired school principal from the Bronx, originally from Greenville. So yeah, she had a lot of character, a lot of personality. It was really fun to meet her. And she brought donuts, so she won. So her name is Nicole. I'm just not doing last names today. Nicole. And I was glad to meet her. Any questions on any of that?
No.
In terms of the statistics, so April, of course, last year in April, we circulated almost nothing. Most of what you see here are renewals or library staff checking things out to use for programs from the last year's numbers. And then this year, there's really no good comparisons. E-content was actually down a little bit because last April, e-content was the only option anyone had. So that's probably the most interesting thing to see there. And then moving on to financials, we got a very random grant, Albany County, $269.42. We've applied through Upper Hudson for some census outreach money back in, I think, January, February of 2020, back when we thought like census outreach would happen. And we didn't get it. We didn't hear anything because obviously everyone's priorities pivoted really quickly. And then they sent us a check for $269.42 last month. So we're like, okay. I think someone was just trying to close out the account. Is the sum of that. Really isn't any other unusual expenditure. We renewed our magazines. You can see that $776 there. If anyone has any questions about anything else, happy to do my best to answer them.
If there aren't any questions, I would ask that we have a motion to accept the check registers for both May 6th and May 7th. So entertain a motion to accept those two check registers, May 6th and May 7th. Trish, right? Made the motion?
I'll second Marie. I'm under Bruce, but it's Megan.
Okay.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Sort of pro forma, right? And so we'll go on to Judith, if you will, to the virtual programs.
Sure. So, one thing I'm excited about that's coming up is a partnership with Community Care Revita. Dr. Brian Dworsky is doing a vaccine Q&A for us. I'm going to do it on June 3rd. We sent it out in our MailChimp today. I really worked hard to kind of write the description in a way that felt very non-judgmental. So, the target audience is people who are maybe hesitant, but open to the idea of maybe getting vaccinated if they felt a little more comfortable. It was kind of an interesting experience recruiting our physician, and I initially talked to the office manager, and she was like, "Oh, I don't know, they're really almost tired of getting yelled at." Was her description of what that's been like. I don't know Dr. Dworsky. I don't know if anyone here knows him. My hope was because he practices in the community, and obviously he has a patient base in the community, he would be a known name, and that would encourage people to come. When I chatted with him, I said, it's possible that no one will sign up, but I feel like it's our role as the library to make this information available to people, and I would imagine it aligns with the practice's goal to do what you can to encourage people to get vaccinated. And so he's like, we'll give it a try. So I appreciate that attitude. So that is coming up. And I think last month I mentioned that I was working with DEC to do a Q&A about the issue with Lafarge and clean air. Folks probably saw in the news, I think it was Thursday, that DEC pulled Lafarge's permit to potentially burn tire-derived fuel. They hadn't been building the kind of kiln that they would have needed. So DEC said, well, you're not doing that, so we're going to take the permit. So I touched base with a couple of people in the community and said, because there's so much unknown right now, like we don't know if Lafarge is going to appeal and try to get the permit back or not. It probably doesn't make sense to do that event right now. So I reached out to DEC and said, can we just table this for now? So that's kind of on the back burner for now. We do have a program in early June. This is an advantage of working in the virtual realm. Disability Rights New York reached out to us. And I think that their target audience is pretty small in the community. And if they were to want to do an in-person program, I'd probably be discouraged a bit. Like, I just don't think you're going to get anyone. But for a virtual program, the barriers are so low that we're happy to partner with them. So if anyone has any thoughts about the best way of kind of getting the word out about that, they're really advocates for folks with disabilities, making sure they get the services they need. I'd be certainly interested in hearing about that. But it's kind of doing all the Zoom programming, there's certainly drawbacks, but one advantage is that it lets us do offerings like that and potentially serve a segment of the community that is really small, but in need of services.
Judith?
Yes.
The group homes.
What's the topic of the program? Or are they just going to talk about their organization and what they do?
Let me just really quick pull up the description so I'm accurate.
Okay.
Disability rights. Here it is. So they're talking about their client assistant programs, and then adult continuing ed and vocational resources, the Commission for the Blind, access services. So basically, they're looking to identify people who are in need of service and educate people and their families about the free legal and advocacy services that they provide.
Okay, and what did you say the name of the organization was?
Disability Rights New York.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking. I can send you that. Actually, it's on our calendar. If you look on June 1st,
Okay.
It's on our events calendar.
Okay, I'll look and see.
I'm pretty sure.
You could go right
there tonight.
You could go right to the, is it the Washington, whatever, BOCES that runs our group home over here by the diner?
Is that run by BOCES?
The Washington, I can't remember the connection to, is it Washington something BOCES?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Roberta Williams, I know, works there. She's a town person, or a town person who works there.
Yeah.
I can't remember what goes with Washington County. Washington something county, BOCES.
So the BOCES up there, it's
Washington, Warren,
Yes.
and that's it. I can't think of the other.
Okay, maybe that's just the two counties, but yeah.
I had no idea that BOCES operated group homes.
There's one over here on Madison, yeah.
You sure it's BOCES?
The Washington, whatever they call it, the Washington, I know that's the first county name.
Yeah, but BOCES doesn't operate group homes.
Not normally, yeah. Not I know.
Might it be the ARC? I know they have a couple of group homes in Robina. And actually, Judith, Tabitha Pitts, who was talking about being on the board, she works for the ARC. So she might be a good person to touch base with getting the word out for that program.
Her. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Great.
Kinley! Shh! Kinley! Kinley, get over here.
I So as always, I'm very open to ideas. We did our first in-person story time last Thursday. We're doing our weekly Juice and Jammies starting in June. So it is really nice kind of seeing people get together back in the pavilion. We are able to use Bossier Park liberally up until summer rec program happens, during which time, this is basically, I think, like July 7th to August 12th. The summer rec program is there from like 9 to 3. So what we're thinking of doing is getting a tent and putting it on the north side, so that the short parking lot side of the library. That has a couple advantages. One, obviously the space will always be available for us. And while we want to do our programs outside, we want families to be able to come and browse for books. We are still seeing that big decline in kid circulation. So we figured that way families will physically be at the library, for the standing next to each other for an extended period of time, will be outside. But then families can go in and browse before or after at their leisure. We're probably going to buy a tent unless someone has a lead on a tent. I mean, I kind of hate to store it, but feel free to shoot me an email if you have any brainwaves on that. But I spent a couple $100 to get a tent that we can kind of fit a dozen or so people underneath.
What about renting one? Is that too costly, or it'd be probably cheaper to buy it?
Yeah, my thought is because we need it for at least 6 weeks. That's probably less expensive. But I didn't even think about that, Tricia, so it's certainly worth looking into.
What's that? Is it Tent Rentals in Caro? Do they rent tents, I think? Possibly. I'm not sure.
I think it's called Big Top Tents.
Big Top. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they may even have something that they're willing, but something that they've used in past seasons and looking to sell. We don't need anything fancy.
Right.
If they do weddings, they probably want all their stuff.
And they would come and possibly put it up for you and take it down.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
And you wouldn't have to store it because they've got to be dried, and you can't store it wet.
Big Top Tents. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely looking for something that we can put up once and take down once. And my tent experience is limited to the pop-up for the chicken barbecue, so I am very underqualified. Okay.
And they also have a way of securing it for the wind, putting cement abutments down, or whatever you call it, ties, so you don't want to blow it down McConnell Avenue.
Yes, that would be bad. Onto the throughway. Nothing good would come of that.
So, shall we go on to the construction grant update?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't too much of an update. I am going to, tomorrow actually, I think it is, there's a NYSERDA is doing a webinar on charging stations for electric vehicles, and the funding that's available for that. I don't know, I'd be pleasantly surprised if I could also use New York State construction funds for that. And I don't know how generous the NYSERDA funding is. The webinar I saw was actually promoted by Con Edison, which to me suggests that some utilities are partnering with them. And I have not seen anything out of Central Hudson. There's probably a big scale issue or difference between Central Hudson and Con Edison. So I figured, go to the webinar, see what the deal is. I'm sure folks have seen, is it 2030? GM says they're only going to be selling electric cars. It's coming really fast. So there's always more funding available at the beginning when they're trying to get people to adopt these things. So I think now is the time for us to look into it rather than 5 years from now when we want one and have to pay for it on our own. So I'll certainly let you guys know if anything comes of that. Our digital sign, they tell me early June. I'll kind of believe it when I see it. It's one of those things are held up. And there are a lot of supply chain issues I'm sure you've all heard, above and beyond things getting stuck in the Suez Canal. So just being patient with that. I think they're doing the best they can. And 2 other kind of vaguely facilities-related things. Both have to do with JAT and the Village project. If you've driven past the library, you may notice that the little strip of grass between the sidewalk and the road is very overgrown. Vasto won't mow it because there is too much uneven terrain, like large-scale gravel, hunks of rocks. Because when they dug that up, they didn't really put topsoil in, they didn't reseed the grass. There's a lot of rock in there. So Vasto's position is this could ruin my mower and or spit rocks out at passing cars. So I reached out to the village saying, this is an issue, and they tell me that either JAT or Department of Public Works will fix it. And that was close to a month ago. So if anyone sees anyone from the village, feel free to bring that up. Because it does look very unkempt. The rest of the library's lawn is being mowed. But the trim bit, which is obviously the most prominent part, is not. And then our parking lot is also in pretty rough shape. And I think that was really accelerated by all the construction vehicles that have been parked there. That's a little tougher. It's obviously a much bigger ask. I have not brought this up with the village. And it's also a little more complicated because it's a matter of degree. I don't know when that was last paved. And it certainly was not, it wasn't like it was a new parking lot and they came in and cracked it, but the cracks are a lot more obvious now than they were a year ago. So we'll have to decide if it's worth kind of pursuing that with the village or a JAT. They were digging up the library's McConnell Avenue entrance again on Thursday and Friday of last week. So I really don't know what's going on, but it's been not smooth sailing. So that's kind of just one more facilities issue. If anyone has any inside information on any of that, I'd be very curious to hear it.
And so our library opened for their new hours on May 3rd. And so Judith wants to discuss the reopening steps.
Yes, so it's been all of a week and a day. We have 100% of the people working all of their hours in the building now. And it's been working well. We moved a bunch of desks into the meeting rooms, which means, I don't think we were ready to start using those meeting rooms for meetings yet anyhow. I think that with the summer and the good weather, we won't need to. But that kind of really solidifies that because they're not available. But it's been really nice being able to have extra hours. It certainly hasn't been busy. It takes probably going to be like how long has this been? 14 months? 14 months? 14 months to everyone finally knows that things are different, and it's going to be another 14 months before everyone finds out that things are back. And it has been nice, folks who have seen the publicity we put out, been like, oh, we're so happy you're open. I'm like, oh, we've been open since last July. But we're glad. There's no point getting into the weeds with people. Oh, good, we're happy to see you. Is our approach to that. In my mind, the next step might be returning the couches and armchairs. Those, and then returning also the magazines and newspapers. We made the decision last spring to pull the magazines and newspapers. We just kind of put them on a table for people to take and keep, because at that point there was this transmission fear. People thought, oh, if someone reads the newspaper and then someone else reads the newspaper, that's a COVID risk, and we now know that really is almost zil. So to me, that would be the next step towards normalcy, and I think it would be kind of visually more appealing rather than this empty space and this empty magazine rack. So I wanted to get folks' take on that.
I think as long as things were spaced out, and people weren't sitting right on top of each other, that seems totally reasonable to me. It's been so long, I can't picture how close they were. I don't think they were on top of each other anyway, but.
We generally discourage the sitting on top of each other. That's mainly the teens. Yeah, they're probably 3-4 feet, and we could space them more, and we could also, there's the armchairs are easy, the sofa's a little more complicated, but, I don't think even in normal times, people sit down on the sofa when there's someone who they don't know also on the sofa.
Right.
It's more like, oh, I'm there with my elderly parent, I'm going to sit down with them. That kind of thing. Same household.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think it sounds good.
A slow return to normality.
Yeah.
Inch by inch.
We did just a social media push on the new hours. And the first question was, is the play space open? We're like,
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
so, you know, when that happens, I think people are going to be excited. We're not there yet.
Any questions or discussion? Future discussion about the reopening? I know Judith will keep us abreast of any additional changes. Any comments or concerns? Any miscellaneous topics?
Yeah, so this is kind of tangentially related. Folks may have seen that last week the governor kind of came out with May 19th, right, as these restrictions fading days. And it's a little bit weird, right? There's no more capacity restrictions, but you have to be able to maintain your 6 feet of social distancing. This is really a moot point for us. I don't think there's, you know, in the last 7 days, certainly, there has not been any point where we even had 12 people in the building, you know, 12 patrons in the building. You know, there were like, yeah, there's been times where there's only 5 or 6. But we could raise that number. I don't know if people have any thoughts about that.
Seems like our own governor's had a little problem with that social distancing with females.
There is that.
Sorry, guys.
Well, a little bit of levity never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
So what's the limit now, Judith?
12 out of 12 patrons at a time.
No.
And honestly, I mean, I think it would be the rare day before we have programs that will be an issue. You know, when we have programs, you know, and perhaps if you're doing these outside programs and there's multiple families that want to come in afterwards, then that might be a point. But, you know, then it gets a little tricky, right? If you have a program for, you know, early elementary students, those families, when they use the library, are all going to be in the same section of the library. So on one hand, we have 10,000 square feet, but if everyone is looking at the Owl Diary Stepping Stone books, because that's the section without age, then it doesn't really matter. You can't say, hey, 6-year-old, go browse in adult nonfiction.
Yeah. I think if it's usually 5 or 6, I guess my comfort level is to keep it the same, so we all gain a little more comfort with the changes that are happening.
Anybody else have comments or concerns?
I'm going to throw it out here. It's been kind of on my. Do you think we can meet in person?
So there's 2 things about that. One is if we did that, it would have to be a public meeting. You know, you gotta let other people meet it. So there's really 3 things. There's that. Do we want to do that? You know, not that we've ever been inundated by the public.
No, but I forgot about that piece, Judith.
There's the fact that it's staff workspace. So the community room is Kathy Meyer's desk is back there right now, and we're recording our story times back there. You know, that's not to say we couldn't roll in tables and the board could meet. And then the third thing is, you know, we've been telling other groups, and I think with other groups it's an issue because we don't want other groups meeting by staff members' workspace. But it's harder to say to other groups, you know, no, we're not, when the board's meeting there in person. So that's
I understand.
Yeah. You know, that's not to say we couldn't, you know, we could meet outside, we could, you know, if you guys wanted to and you made that decision, we could meet at the library, but there are drawbacks.
I understand.
Could you iterate the third issue again for me?
Oh, sure. So the third one is simply that we're telling other people that, you know, today someone asked me, oh, can we meet in the community room yet? And I said no. And the most pressing issue is it's obviously people have their desks back there now, and it's not, you know, you wouldn't have them meet in the normal staff workspace, and for the same reason, you know. If you ever catch our YouTube story time, you'll see where it's recorded.
Judith, I got some information. It is the Warren Washington Albany ARC. My apology.
Gotcha. Thank you.
It's called New Visions.
Yeah, okay, yes, that's how I've heard it referred to. So that makes sense. Thanks.
She said there is a state-run home on Hillcrest too.
Huh, I did not know that.
And there's a handful of clients who live at home here in Ravenna. I don't know what that means, so.
You know, we see like they have an aide with them. And they actually, we see a number of people who come to the library with their kind of one-on-one aide.
Right. So there may be more than we really realize. Maybe they're not concentrated, but.
Yeah.
Well, if there aren't any other concerns, questions, I will ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I don't think there's anyone. Thank you all. It's good to see everybody again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay well.
You too.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
That'd be great.
I can-
Anna, thank you.
I can talk faster than I can type.
Right, I was like,
Oh, cancel.
I feel like I just messaged Meredith saying, can she come tomorrow? And she said yes. And I'm still typing to her. And then
Okay, see you then.
I'll see you at 10.
Okay.
Thank you, Meredith.
Good night, Marie.
Good night. I think that's it, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're done.
Yay. You had a nice Mother's Day?
Yes, very nice. Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was quiet. It was quiet, but
I got
good conversation. 3,000 miles away. So,
That's good. How are they doing?
well, it'll be in June, I guess. We'll see.
Do you know early June, late June?
Well, she said the 30th, but
Okay.
she thinks that she might be a little early. It's coming. It's really coming soon. So we'll see. It was a nice quiet day, but it's relaxing.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Did you go down to see your mother, or
No,
did you come up?
my mother actually went to see my brother in Boston.
Oh, nice. Well,
Yeah, and my brother said, you can come out for brunch. I was like, that's a long drive. Thanks.
that is a long drive.
That's what FaceTime is good for.
Right. Okay, so we will be in touch, and let's see what will happen, next week with the board, the elections. And,
Yeah. I'll let you know what I know.
right. Are you having, like, Meredith help again with the counting
No,
that she
because
has?
it's gonna be they're using the voting machines. It's
Oh, those machines. They're using the Albany County machines, right?
Yeah, so that'll help a lot.
That'll be fast.
Yeah. Once was enough for the manual account.
Yeah, right. Yes, we're not in Arizona, right?
Right. Yeah. So.
Craziness. Okay, it was good to see you.
You too.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.